Hopefully everybody's here for our forest plan revision meeting. Okay, everybody who's at a table, please make sure you're sitting at a table with folks that you don't know. Oh. Well, let me take that back. With people that you want to be with people that you don't agree with. How's that? You may know them, but you might not agree with them. How's that? You guys, I'm going to use the microphone tonight because MCAT is here. The MCAT folks are here, and I'm going to use the microphone throughout the evening. When we get into our big groups, we'll probably hand off the microphone so that it can be recorded better. So, okay, folks, come on in, and please sit with people that you disagree with. Hey, Kathy. So for people that are brand new, how many folks do we have tonight that are brand new to us? Oh, good. Okay, we got a few. I'm Maggie Pittman. I work at the Missoula Ranger District as the district ranger. And I've got a outstanding staff of folks that I get to work with, and let me introduce them really quick. Andy Kula. Andy is our resource assistant in charge of wilderness, recreation, minerals, things like that. Where do we have Don Stadler? Where are you, Don? Don is our National Environmental Policy Act guru. He's really smart. So I like to work with him as much as I can. He makes me look smart. And then John Waverick. Where's John? John's also very smart. He's our fire management officer. He's been around for Coon's age. He used to do our timber management program on the district. Sharon Sweeney is our public affairs officer for the forest. Sharon is our facilitator also. She'll be with us for the remainder of our meetings through September 1st. And then finally, we've got Chuck Sperry. Chuck, where are you? Oh, thank you, Chuck. Chuck is the assistant team leader for the planning team, the forest plan revision team, and he works primarily with us during this process. There's a slug of people on the team, what, about 8 people? 11 people, and one each is connected with the different ranger districts on these meetings. I'm not very smart. And he is pretty smart too. All of us, except for me, are really, really smart. So, and Andy, yeah, you're, so now, there's a couple things I want to talk to you about really quick before we get started, and Sharon's going to take over facilitating as soon as I'm done with this. For those of you that weren't here last time, we heard a lot of stuff from you based on what you would like to see, primarily on the preferred option map, which is the really big one that's in front of you. It's got all the legend stuff on the side. Some of the things that you mentioned that you just needed more detail, like roads, and I think they were on there, but you didn't know exactly where some of the landmarks are. Streams, drainages are all mentioned, towns are mentioned, campgrounds, I think, are those mentioned on there now, Sharon?
I don't know that they are.
Okay.
They are there in such small print, you can't see them.
Okay. We tried in general to get more specific information on there so you can know where you are when you're looking at the map. Somebody suggested we bring a copy of our travel map. We have one of those with us tonight so you can see what some of the current restrictions are compared to the new preferred option. You wanted us to clarify what our outcomes were for each meeting, and Sharon is going to do that for us tonight. It's hard for people to stay focused without understanding all the management area themes, and that's exactly what our objective is tonight, to try to get everybody finished with going through each one of the management areas so you feel pretty comfortable with what each one means, so that in the future meetings we can have more general discussions. How did we get from the old forest plan to this one? And this is actually just from the old forest plan to the preferred option. Folks probably remember that a month or two ago we found out that we have a new planning rule that the Forest Service is now operating under. Prior to that, we had the old planning rule, which allowed us to develop a variety of alternatives. We came up with 5 action alternatives under the old planning rule, and a lot of those looked kind of chunky, like we might have one that was specific to a lot more commodity use and another that was more specific to backcountry and wilderness. When we had our meetings last year, hey Dale, come on up and meet with folks that you don't know. We met last summer in a collaborative format by communities, just as we are this year, took in a lot of input, did a lot of mapping based on what we learned from those meetings. When we got the new rule a couple months ago, we took all of that information that we mapped and what we heard from the public, and we pulled it all into what our vision and wove it into what the public's vision was, and that's what you see in that preferred option. So it was kind of our best estimate of what we heard from the public last year and what we see as our vision for future management of the Lolo. And then finally, we wanted to have an overlay that shows current roadless areas, and we have that with us. So back on that table, we didn't put them on your tables because we didn't want to clutter up too much. All you have on your table tonight is the preferred option map and then the existing condition or no action map. And what that means is that if everything stayed the same, what we have right now. So those two maps are on your table, and then on the back table we have maps that include the neighboring forests. We've got the North Idaho Planning Zone map. We've got the Flathead and the Bitterroot, Sharon.
Up on the wall.
Okay.
For folks, because a lot of folks were wondering what's going on right next door.
Okay. And I think, is that it? Of the maps that we have?
I think so, and then, again, the roadless area maps.
Yes, in the roadless areas. So don't hesitate to ask if you have stuff. Each of you will have a Forest Service staff person at your table. So Andy, you're over here. Let's see. Don, are you going to be here? Chuck, are you going to, one of you needs to be at another table. You can't wander. You have to grab a table. Okay, where's John? I will, yeah, John's over here. Okay, I'll sit over here, and then Sharon, are you going to be kind of facilitating? Or are you going to sit at a table?
As long as those guys, you guys are splitting up,
Okay,
I'll be a floater, I suppose.
okay, all
Doesn't
right.
sound very good, though.
So
No,
Sharon,
I'll be that.
now I'm going to turn it over to you. I know there's folks that have questions about the process. I don't want to take too much time to answer too many questions because we really want to get into the management area discussions. But sir, do you have a quick process kind of question?
Yes, I believe we're only supposed to talk about the Missoula Ranger District here tonight, right?
That's what we would
This
prefer,
map
yes.
shows the whole,
Yes,
so
and that's,
maybe you could explain which sections we are supposed to talk about.
thank you, great question. On the Missoula Ranger District, you'll see 3 geographic areas. The first is Rock Creek, and you'll see a line around Rock Creek. The other is the greater Missoula area, and then the third is the Lolo Creek area. So those 3 geographic areas make up the Missoula Ranger District. Okay? Great. I'm going to turn over to Sharon, and she'll work us through the process here.
Thanks, Maggie. Did you? Okay. So, first of all, welcome back, everybody. That's first thing I want to say. And then the second thing, we will be going over, I think we went over 3 of the management area themes last week. You remember we did that at our tables, and folks were concerned that they couldn't really make a decision on one of the management areas without knowing what all the other management areas look like. So I'm briefly going to read them. We'll have a brief round of questions about each one, and then we will move on. But for those of you that either didn't bring yours or are new this evening, we have some more of those management area things. So raise your paw and we'll get one to you. Yeah. So, again, Maggie talked a little bit about our objectives, and tonight what we're going to do is familiarize ourselves with the management area, that'll be MA, the management area themes, and then develop an understanding of what our maps look like and become more comfortable with our maps. And then, as I read them, I'm planning to just read a brief little synopsis of it, and then people can ask clarifying questions about it for, just a couple, 3 minutes. We've got a few people here that can help us. Then we'll move on to the next one. Again, just so we can develop an understanding of what the whole big ball of wax looks like. And you will see as we go through them that management area 1.1 is wilderness, and there are 11 management areas total. If you look at them on the front page, you can see that they're all listed there. But 1.1 is wilderness, and it goes all the way to 6.1. So those are from, actually, they range in order, I guess, from the least amount of management action to the most amount of management action or human intensity. And Chuck, if I use the wrong word somewhere along the line, keep me straight. So after we go through all of that, which I'm hoping will only take an hour, and again, we're trying to build a firm footing and a common set of understanding here, then we'll ask people to just work at their individual tables and to, what we're really trying to do out of all of these meetings is develop some points of agreement. That's what we're here to do. Find if there's any areas that we can agree on. And I think what we will start to do next meeting, and again, we just want you to become familiar here. The next meeting, I think we will start with each geographic area. So we will start with one of the geographic areas and just focus on it. And my thought is we will start with Rock Creek next time and hopefully get through Rock Creek and try to develop areas of understanding with the way that the Rock Creek geographic area is mapped or is going to be mapped using the management areas that we're learning about tonight. So again, we'll be looking at the maps, and what I would like us to do is one person, if we can get to one person, from each table report out, and you can decide amongst yourselves, or if anybody wants to just speak, we can do that as well. But report out if you have areas of agreement, any areas of agreement at your table, or if you've got areas of disagreement. And in general, if you are okay with this process, or if you've got a better idea you think to make this work better, or you need more information about a particular thing, like last time, folks said they really wanted to see the management area, the roadless area maps, so we brought those. Other folks said, I really want to see where there's towns and stream names, so that should be on this go-around of maps. Okay, yes?
When's the joint meeting on the Lolo people?
July 21. And I will remind you, and for those of you that didn't write this down or were interested, on this website here, the Plan Revision website, we're posting all of our notes as well as all the other collaborative groups in the whole Western Montana Planning Zone. Everybody's evening notes are being posted there, and these two maps that you have on your table are also there. So, with that, we're good to go?
How are we doing in terms of equality of numbers at each table? Do anybody feel like they're slim? You guys are a little slim.
We're slim.
You guys are slim. How about one or two of folks at this table? Maybe one person from this table go over to that one. Anybody? Kat, you want to go? Thank you very much. That'd be great. And Sharon, we'll change. I haven't asked you to be at a table, Sharon.
Okay.
And then Chuck will float through as our kind of our staff counselor.
Great.
Do you agree with her?
Yes.
So Chuck, you and I will swap seats.
She agrees with me.
So you folks over at that table, when you look at Chuck, you see Sharon.
Hey, Chuck.
Never mind.
You want to sit here? That'd be outstanding.
I don't.
We have a copy.
Do we have any of the small maps? Did anybody see any of that when we were unpacking?
Oh, it's there. Okay. I have a miniature of that.
Sharon, I couldn't find them. I don't know
Okay.
if I misplaced them or not. I'm
I
sorry.
think, yeah. Somewhere, but not tonight. So I'm going to just start on this. Again, I'm just going to read parts of it. The first one is designated wilderness. I think we all know what that is. I'm actually not going to read them all. Surprise. I think we know what that is. Wilderness is wilderness. It's designated by Congress. And we talked about these first three last time, so I'm hopefully just going to skip over designated wilderness. Recommended wilderness. We talked about that last time, and these are the lands that we have looked at that we are recommending to be included into wilderness. Let's see, for the Missoula Ranger District, or these three geographic areas, actually across the forest as a whole, this is very, very, there's not much change on this recommended wilderness. or management area 1.2. Not much change from the last go-round of plan revision. So there is one addition on the Missoula Ranger District, and that's in the Rock Creek area. So again, this recommended wilderness one, just so you know, that's an area that we are recommending for wilderness. Okay, moving on to management area 2.1. We talked about this one last time as well. That's designated and eligible wild and scenic and recreational rivers. These are identical to what was in the last forest plan. And so those really haven't changed at all. Congress, we will recommend, it is our job to recommend to Congress, and they would actually designate wild and scenic rivers. They have chosen not to designate any additional wild and scenic rivers, at least the ones that we've sent up to them. And so they will just run through the plan revision process again.
Sharon?
Yes.
I told several people last week we were going to have the wild and scenic rivers broken out into wild and recreation and scenic. I got a talking to that we don't have the capability of doing that on the map right now, so
Right.
I'm sorry about that. I'll always chose designated or not.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you fessed up, good job.
I screwed it up, so.
They are identical to the existing forest plan. Yeah. Across the whole forest.
Could we just list that? You don't have to print it on the map, but just bring a list of it so that we can refer to it and find out which one's gonna be which? Is that?
Wild, scenic, and recreational?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can do that.
we just can't change it on the map, but
Yeah.
we can print it maybe.
I think Andy's probably got that somewhere, right? Except for,
I'll make a note.
okay.
Just a little more information.
Thank you, Andy. So the backcountry areas, I don't know that we got too awful far on that last time, so this will be the first one that I read. And I'm just going to read the theme and a little bit of the suitability information. So in other words, what would management area 2.2 be suitable for? So backcountry, management area 2.2. Backcountry areas are generally roadless landscapes that are natural appearing with little or no evidence of recent human-caused disturbance. These areas are generally suitable for non-motorized recreation opportunities in a natural appearing landscape. Ecological processes such as natural succession, fire, insects, and disease are allowed to function with little human interference, while allowing opportunities for solitude and self-reliance. These are generally our inventoried roadless areas that we had last time. Backcountry areas are not suitable for timber production. Now, suitable for timber production means they go against our ASQ, or, you know, we are, that's a bad term for you, that we are given, how does one explain ASQ? That we are given, sometimes targets anyway, to manage for a certain number of board feet. And the timber for those areas wouldn't come out of that. This is the way it is now. I don't know if that's changed or not.
You're talking about the suitable?
Yeah. Suitable.
That means they're suitable for what we call regulated timber harvest, which means in the forester's jargon that you're trying to optimize the yield and do all the things that foresters do when they're managing as not exactly like a tree farm, but they're being fairly intensively managed. And it brings with it some obligations under the National Forest Management Act in terms of replanting the land, regenerating the land after re-harvest and that sort of thing. So it kicks it into a different management class. But in terms of whether commercial timber harvest can come off that land, there's also a lot of commercial timber harvest that can come off at lands that aren't designated as suitable for timber harvest. It's a bureaucratic distinction. Those of you that are in the business know what it means, but
And that could include backcountry, or non-regulated.
Non-regulated. So backcountry in general is not suitable for timber production, but timber harvest, including salvage, or for multiple use reasons, could occur. So these areas are generally suitable for commercial use of miscellaneous forest products. Backcountry areas are generally not suitable for commercial communication sites or utility corridors. Backcountry areas are generally suitable for managed fire use and generally not suitable for motorized use. Any clarifying questions on what backcountry is all about? Yes? Could I get you to speak up for all of you, just so everybody in the room can hear?
Okay, the miscellaneous forest products, is that the same thing you were talking about in the other document? Berry picking and
Yes, miscellaneous forest products could be ferns or huckleberries or boughs off of trees or even Christmas trees. Okay?
down, are you, down at the bottom, there's the thing about the, semi-primitive motorized opportunities, what are those?
Well, I wasn't actually going to go into all of that for each one of these. I can, I suppose. It's a recreation opportunity spectrum, and for those folks that speak recreation, it actually paints a very clear picture, but generally not to me. But I know it does to Andy, so if...
What is semi-primitive motorized opportunity?
We just had a 3-day planning team meeting this week, and we had a big discussion, a big talking to our rec folks who say, we can't present that language, because no one knows what it means, I mean, except, as Sharon says, the professionals. So we're gonna work on answering your question here. I can't give you the technical answer right now, and Andy can, you're welcome to Andy. I think it's semi-primitive non-motorized.
Is this driving the car?
So, are we talking force?
Chuck said you can push your ATV.
Are we talking about force?
It tends to be an area where I'm going to guess at it here, just help me if I get it wrong, Andy. It's an area where generally you wouldn't encounter very many people. You wouldn't see much by way of structures, developed structures. There'd be trails. There'd probably be trail signs, and there may be ATV trails. There may be even occasional vehicle, to track vehicle trail or road. But it's generally a low intensity experience where you can camp pretty well anywhere you want it, as long as you stay the proper distance away from the creek and that sort of thing. So there could be some motorized use, but you're not going to see the recreational Sunday afternoon driver in that kind of place. It's not a very good explanation.
And if you think of, if any of you have hunted or hiked into the inventoried roadless areas, if you think of what it's like, you're up in there, the trail isn't a great big wide thing. It doesn't get a boatload of use. It's pretty darn narrow. It's kind of a little brushy here and there.
You mean like the South Fork of the Flathead?
I don't know. That's on the Flathead National Forest. So,
Sharon,
Okay.
just for Chuck, you mentioned that the planning team will change the wording a little bit in here.
Yeah,
Make it
So-
English.
bureaucratic.
But what will remain is the recreation opportunity spectrum as a separate entity, right?
What we're talking about is we're not quite ready for that, but yes, the answer is yes, Maggie.
Okay,
The
so-
mapping that, so although the words may not mean much, the mapping should mean more.
Okay, all
We're
right.
not ready for that. We're
Should
not
we
ready.
post recreation opportunity spectrum definitions maybe on our website or bring hard copies next time?
We could probably do that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think we should work on clarifying them.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah. I've got 2 questions. Go ahead.
Oh, I had, so in the backcountry areas it's gonna include motorized trails, what it reads right now.
It could include motorized trails if there are already motorized trails there and we elect to keep those trails as motorized. Some of those motorized trails may go away.
They'd be by exception.
Yes.
The
They would.
the general setting would be non-motorized, and if there were exceptions where there was motorized use, that would be shown in the MA as an exception.
Okay.
Just a second.
Would it allow for road building for any purpose?
We haven't discussed road building, to my knowledge. I don't know the answer to that.
It does allow for motorized equipment for management purposes, does it not?
Yes, like in the event of a fire.
Event of
That's-
fire or trail maintenance or
Yes.
facility development, things like that, they need equipment in there.
Chuck just said, Dale, that it's very unlikely that we'd have new road construction.
I'd almost say, come as close to no on that one as any of you. I think the idea there is that there may be some areas that we've chosen to label as 2.2 that have maybe an existing road corridor that's, for some reason, we're thinking that it's not attractive to close it. So our choice is to say, well, because that road is there, we can't call it 2.2, let's bump it up to 3.3. We don't want to do that. Generally, we want that primitive experience, but there may be some existing motorized use. With the idea of building new motorized use in there, I think I'll come awful close to saying no.
But you wouldn't build roads for timber or garbage.
No, we would not do that.
Could you include that in 2.2 then, that it does not, it prohibits new road building? I mean, because right now under the language, you could theoretically build new roads.
Yeah.
And so if you would actually change the language that said that no new roads would be built, that would grandfather in the existing roads.
We'll make a note of it. It's a good suggestion. So.
All right, I've got time for 2 more questions, and then we're moving on to the next one.
In a situation in which an exception would be made to kind of put into concrete terms an existing motorized trail, would one of those local EIS processes be done in that situation? Particularly if it's a trail where it's currently illegal?
To put a new one on, yes, we would end up doing another NEPA document, but I don't think, if we don't have a motorized trail now in a backcountry area, in the next, what we're calling the planning horizon, the next 20 years, it's very unlikely that you would see a new motorized trail, unless you've got a motorized trail in 2.2 and it's going up the gut of a draw and it's well used and people say it's better to move it up the hill somewhere. Might see a motorized trail and a closing of the other one. And one more question, and I'll get on. You get the first one next
I had a
time.
question about the use of chainsaws for trail maintenance. Like if there's an access road into a lake, does that mean the person who has the rights to that access road would be taking chainsaws to do the trail maintenance? Or does the Forest Service go in and do the chainsawing for trail or road maintenance? I'm thinking of the example of the road up to Carlton Lake.
I know you are. It sounds,
Just for instance.
I was just thinking that. That's a special use permit item.
I think our intention there, Steve, is that's Forest Service trail maintenance. In case you're talking about is someone has some kind of legal access right, which he or he uses a chainsaw. I'm not.
I believe the answer is no to that, even though they have access, it's a public road and we maintain, it's a special use permit thing.
But so the Forest Service maintains it and does the chainsawing?
Yeah. And I guess then it would be a condition of the special use permit, and generally, when your insurance say the answer is probably no.
And it could be the person that holds the special use permit, we authorize him or her to go in under whatever time to do that road maintenance work. Because road maintenance work, there's no doubt needs to be done on occasion, or trail maintenance work, same thing. So again, we're just trying to develop a firm footing, if you will, for each one of these management areas. So management area 3.1, these are special interest areas or special areas. Probably for the Lolo, we should take out the experimental forest one. We don't have any of those on the Lolo, but I believe the Flathead does. Bitterroot does. How about this? The Lolo doesn't have any experimental forest areas. I'll just leave it at that. And national recreation areas. I wasn't really planning to read a whole lot of this. You will see that we don't have a lot of it, especially on the Missoula Ranger District, but we do have national recreation areas. Like the Rattlesnake, for example. That would be what a national recreation area is, and those are also designated by Congress. And I don't believe that we are recommending any additional national recreation area, or 3.1, are we? No. So the 3.1 will be the same 3.1 that we currently have in the Missoula Ranger District.
That's it? There's no other parcels of 3.1 out there? Just the existing, all right.
Yeah. So 3.2, This maybe gets to your road question. 3.2 are research natural areas. We have those scattered around the national forests across the United States. And I just want to read a little bit about what the theme is and what's appropriate in a research natural area and what is not appropriate, or general, what a research natural area would be suitable for. So the theme for research natural area or management area 3.2, they form a network of representative forest habitats, shrublands, grasslands, alpine, wetlands, riparian systems, geologic formations, wildlife habitats, aquatic communities, and other such areas that have special or unique characteristics of scientific importance. Research natural areas are selected for one or more of the following reasons: to serve as reference areas for evaluating the range of natural variability and the impacts of management in similar environments. That's one. To protect and maintain representative or key elements of biological diversity at the genetic, species, population, community, or ecosystem levels. Another reason is to serve as areas for study of ecosystems and ecological processes, including succession. Another reason, to support educational activities and to serve as baseline areas for measuring ecological change. So I was going to try to read some of the suitability of RNAs in, I'll read the same one so you'll get a general theme in each of the MAs. So research natural areas are generally not suitable for timber production, timber harvest, salvage, or commercial use of miscellaneous forest products. These research natural areas are generally not suitable for commercial communication sites or utility towers. They are generally suitable for managed fire use, generally not suitable for motorized use, except in emergency situations. That would be much like the 2.2 that we just talked about. They are generally suitable for non-manipulative research, observation, and study of undisturbed unique habitats. And then we got that ROS stuff that I'm not going to read. So are there questions on what RNAs are all about?
Chainsaw question again on the RNAs. For maintenance in terms of the road through an RNA, would you, the Forest Service, be doing the maintenance on that because it's such a special, unique area? If it, again, involves some kind of access road?
Again, I think it comes down to that special use question.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a permit to do that, we would have that approved through a study of that permit application, and if it's got a long-standing permit, maybe that kind of thing might take place.
Yes, right, again, that would be special use. Yes, do you have a question?
Yes, I would like to know if riding a horse is semi-primitive, non-motorized.
I would say riding a horse is semi-primitive, non-motorized.
Okay, so is horseback riding allowed throughout these different designations, or can you specify which they're absolutely not allowed?
Well, throughout all of them, and we're going to read them all as we go through, horseback riding would likely not be allowed necessarily, you know, in 6.1, and those are developed recreation areas. And that would be on certain trails, because an example of a developed recreation, and I really don't want to get ahead of myself here, but an example is Blue Mountain, and we all know there are numerous horse trails at Blue Mountain. So, okay. So any additional questions on research natural areas? Yes, sorry.
I'd like to make sure that these pink areas on the map are existing research and natural areas. No new areas are proposed as a result of this plan. Is that correct?
That is correct. There are no new areas proposed. Okay? So, you know, we might just be getting all kinds of agreement here tonight. Yeah, we're fine with the 3.1. So, ready to move on to general forest? That would be management area 3.3.
Sharon, could you do a quick, it helps my brain get around these areas that are general forest 3.3, 4.1, and 5.1.
Are all forest management designations, management areas.
Now, as we go through the next three, just kind of get your head around that 3.3, 4.1, 5.1 are low, medium, high intensity kind of management of the forest. That might help as we go through the next three anyway. Okay, sorry, Sharon.
That's good, thank you. Did you have a question before I even begin?
Yeah, just your labeling in your hierarchy suggests that 3.3 has something in common with 3.2 and 3.1. What is it?
Planner, Chuck, what do you got?
I lost the battle on that one, that's what happened. The idea was this hierarchy was to keep the three of them together, 3.3, 4.1, 5.1, so that they were sort of clustered. My preference was to go 3.1, 4.1, 5.1, because they all had .1s. It's one of those, any way you do it, there are problems with it. But so, no, I wouldn't say there's no significance that they're clustered with the other two. That just, we got met with someplace. This hierarchy, as you can see, as you go from 1.1 to 6.1, is from the lowest level of human intervention to the highest level of human intervention. But some of them don't lend themselves to being ranked that precisely. That's all that.
Good, thanks, Chuck.
But 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 are all non-suitable for timber, is that correct?
That is correct.
And 4.1, 5.1 are.
No, 3.3 is.
3.3 is not suitable for timber.
Oh, it isn't?
It is not suitable for timber harvest.
It's not suitable, so that's kind of the breakout.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you, Don.
Okay, so it's not suitable for what?
For timber production.
For timber production, but you can cut timber.
Yeah, not necessarily timber harvest, but timber production.
For timber.
But not for commercial reasons.
So,
Sell commercial for
okay,
Fire mitigation.
are we,
or one at a time.
let me read this first, if I may. So I'm gonna read 3.3, general forest, low intensity management. Low intensity, general forest, and non-forested areas are generally suitable for providing a mix of fish and wildlife habitat, a relatively natural visual quality setting, an assortment of recreational opportunities, and a variety of other goods and services. They are generally suitable for managing vegetation at low intensities, although initial entries in areas with moderate to high fuels may be managed more intensively to reduce the hazard. Management in these areas emphasizes ecosystem management goals using a wide variety of methods. So again, general suitability of this 3.3 is it's not suitable for timber production, but timber harvest, including salvage for multiple use reasons, certainly could occur. These areas are generally suitable for commercial use of miscellaneous forest products. These areas are generally suitable for commercial communication sites or utility corridors, so you can see we're kind of scaling up here. They are generally suitable for managed fire use, generally suitable for motorized use on designated roads and trails, and that's about it. Now, are there questions on, you can see this is a sort of a timber. If you look across on the map, and I forget the color of it, but you can see that it's generally, there will be timber managed in that area, but at lower intensity, lower levels.
This is the previous, and that's the current proposed.
So the difference between, there's some question about what is timber production versus timber harvest. Timber production, really, it gets back to that ASQ. Let's, if we could have everybody's attention, that would probably, maybe we'll be able to answer the same question around the room. Timber production is generally areas where we will look, the main focus on a piece of ground with timber production really is to produce timber. So that would be one of the goals. You're likely to see higher road densities in a management area with timber production per se, but in 3.3, we're still looking to manage timber, but just at low levels. Harvest means No, we can still manage some timber in 3.3, but it's, the main emphasis isn't for producing timber off of those grounds, off those lands. It's kind of it's a fine line, but one is much more intense, I guess, than the other. Yes?
When you talk about low road density levels, are you impacting that by road closures? Is that how you achieve that, or what constitutes a low impact?
I don't believe the team has really set road density levels. Is that correct, Chuck? For low, moderate, and high, right? So they haven't really set road density levels. Many of these lands are kind of what we are managing in low intensity timber management areas, or what we're managing right now. And I actually counted up some of these. You'll see the numbers alongside your map. And in 3.3 on the Missoula, across the entire Missoula Ranger District, it only is 2% of the Missoula Ranger District. So there, you shouldn't see, whatever color that is, you shouldn't be seeing a whole lot of it on this Ranger District. Did you still have a question?
I think what people have to realize is they need to look at their map and realize that there's also Plum Creek land out there, and a lot of times people confuse Plum Creek with Forest Service land when logging is being done, and they...
Right, in this exercise in forest planning, we're only looking at the national forest lands, so.
But if they are driving down a road and they see this logging operation, the first thing that a lot of people comes to their mind is the darn Forest Service is at it again.
Well, and you know, I bet a lot of people are fairly, I know you're educated in that, like where the lines are. Lots of people really are educated, and I'll bet everybody in this whole room will, over the course of the summer and staring at these maps, will develop a better understanding of where the national forest lies. Did you have a question back there?
Yes. I think you're going to have to dumb this down a little bit for me. You said timber production was to produce timber. Can you explain to me what that looks like? I know production is producing, but can you?
Please.
It took me a long time to get this, so I'll see if I can. If it's designated as suitable for timber production, and that difference between production and harvest, to you and I, it's like, what's the difference? But you gotta have technical language so that the technical people can talk to one another. So technically, if it's suitable for timber production, that means the intention is perhaps go in and do a timber sale now, probably maybe open some roads that were closed, or maybe build some new roads, with the idea that when the timber sale is finished, at some time afterward, we're going to make sure that it regenerates properly, and that it's regenerating with the right mix of trees so that they can grow an optimal crop of timber for the next generation. And that there will come a time in the future when then we'll go back again, we'll do some thinning, and we'll be gardening that, we'll be cultivating it with the idea that we want to do timber production in that area. Someplace else that we've called, what's the other word? Or just timber harvest. That may be a place where in this decade we see a need to improve some wildlife habitat. It's just thrown in too much, the species that wouldn't naturally be there are taking over the site. Normally, the fire would have taken care of the job and would have restored it to the more natural conditions, but we can't wait. It's gotten so overgrown because of fire suppression. So we're going to go in there and do some timber harvest, and as long as we're doing it, we might as well sell it and use it for commercial value. And there could be a lot of that, because there's an awful lot of places that need that kind of treatment. But we're not necessarily going in with the idea that we've got to keep this, we've got to cultivate this for future timber harvest.
And there's an important distinction there, because the next management area, we move from not suitable for timber production to timber production for lands that are suitable for timber production.
The only way I can understand this, and I might be wrong, is your use of the word suitable. When you say to me as a forester, this is non-suitable for timber production, it means that it has low water, shallow soils, site indexes of down in the 30s or 40s. It grows more grass than it does trees, but that's not the way you're using this, I don't think.
It's a legal term for us, suitability.
It cannot be productive timberlands. It means that your designation and management objectives do not include timber production.
That's exactly right. That is what it means. It is just, it's a legal terminology that we do use it that way.
We inherited it from the National Forest Management Act.
Right.
So you can have the highest site in the world and still be designated as
Non-suitable, exactly.
Even though it is.
Right. It's what, the word, we would, the way we would always all use that word in everyday language doesn't count. It doesn't, don't use it that way. But what you said is exactly right. So can I move on to the next one? Yes, one question.
Are there changes proposed in this area?
3 point,
Yeah, this was the previous, this is the.
if you look on the no action map, you might be able to tell there. I honestly, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, this doesn't equate to the current management to 3.3. It's management area, what is it now? 24 is our?
16.
16, thank you. It's probably, we have a broader spectrum now for areas that we do timber production in.
Someone asked before the meeting if we could bring a table that would show the comparison of how much this was to the open.
Yeah, that
no
might be
action. We're going to try to do that
Okay.
for the next meeting.
Good question though. Yeah, let's go on to 4.1 so you can.
Wouldn't 16 more correlate with
4.1.
4.1?
That's what I
No,
was
or 4, no, it would be more 5.1.
Probably, Chuck.
And
Yeah.
maybe 17 would be more like 4.1, is that right?
Well, let's.
That was my question. Is there a direct correlation or a fairly close correlation between, say, MA16 and the current plan?
There is a table that has been put together. So,
We're gonna bring that next time, Chuck.
Chuck, it's not as close as it is for some of the other MAs, like MA 11 and roadless, or MA 11 and back.
and 2.2 are pretty close.
16 doesn't have a parallel like this. 16 is kind of like 4.1 and 5.
Okay, let's go on to 4.1.
So 4.1, again, that's general forest. We're talking about these three, 3.3, 4.1, 5.1. So general forest, moderate intensity. So the theme of 4.1 is moderate intensity, general forest, and non-forested areas emphasize a balance of sustainable ecosystems and resource uses with lands that are suited for timber production. These areas are generally suitable for providing a mix of fish and wildlife habitat, a relatively natural visual quality setting with moderate evidence of human management activity, a wide range of recreational opportunities, and a variety of other goods and services. Landscapes appear modified with roads and vegetation management activities evident at moderate levels. So the generally suitable uses that you would see in management area 4.1, it's generally suited for timber production. These areas are generally suitable for commercial use of miscellaneous forest products, generally suitable for commercial communication sites or utility corridors, generally suitable for managed fire use, generally suitable for motorized use on designated roads and trails. So a little bit more higher use of public use, I guess, higher amount of public use. Now you can imagine that 5.1 on the next page is going to ramp up even more. Are there any questions on moving on? We can move on to 5.1 and see how that ramps up. Yeah.
Does 4.1 in the wording that you have here allow for intense recreation of any kind that would require like a, I'm thinking a motorized track for people or a ski run?
That would generally be 6.1, that high intensity recreation. And I can tell you that on the Missoula Ranger District, about 30% of the Missoula District is under this alternative here, is 4.1. About 30% of the district is. It's on the map. How's that? Pretty good, huh? Quick. 5.1. 5.1 is high intensity management. High-intensity general forest and non-forested areas are generally suitable for providing a broad mix of forest products. This could include commercial and non-commercial forest products. This could include commercial and non-commercial forest products and uses, forage production, a diversity of fish and wildlife habitats, minerals development, and a natural visual quality setting with high evidence of human management activities. Timber harvest and other active vegetation treatments are generally suitable means for achieving management goals. These areas are characterized by coniferous forests, which may be intensively managed for wood fiber. This suitability designation is applied in areas where the potential to grow timber is high and where regularly scheduled harvest of commercial timber is a feasible tool for meeting management objectives. Areas have open roads which provide commercial access and roaded recreational and motorized OHV opportunities on designated roads and trails, including high-use dispersed recreation sites. They are also generally suitable for providing non-motorized and mechanized recreation opportunities on closed roads. Visual quality settings generally reflect an intensively managed landscape where human influence is evident. So again, for suitability, these high-intensity general forest management areas are generally suitable for timber production. These areas are generally suitable for commercial use of miscellaneous forest products. Also generally suitable for commercial communication sites or utility corridors, generally suitable for managed fire use, and generally suitable for motorized use on designated roads and trails. So again, the 3.3, 4.1, and 5.1, you can see how those are broken out, and you can see how we have displayed those on the maps in front of you. And you know, we've used the same colors on the no action map, so if you're more visually, you'd rather see things visually displayed, you can compare the differences between the no action map and the proposed option map in front of you. Yes, sir.
Is the, excuse me, the 5.1, does that have an equivalent in the previous?
Forest plan? Yes. That would probably be like MA16.
So has that changed much in location or?
I would ask you to, you could tell by looking at the other map, so key on what color it is, because the colors are about the same. Yes, sir.
What percent of the ranger district is in this designation?
Well, 5.1, less than 1/2 of 1%, 4.4%. So the bulk of the ranger district, you know, for managed timber anyway, is 30%. Yes.
I have a question about the wording in the theme paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't think of commercial timber harvest as an objective in itself. For what objective is it a tool? It says regularly scheduled harvest is a feasible tool for meeting management objectives. What objectives would it be a tool for?
Improving big game habitat, could be that. Could be for flammulated owls, like small openings in ponderosa pine, like 2-acre openings. Could be. Those are just two quick examples that come off the top of my noggin. Additional questions? Yes, sir.
Just a numbers question. The percents that you've been calculating don't even remotely correspond to the percents that look like they're on these sheets?
Those, the ones that are on the sheets are for the entire Lolo National Forest. Yeah. And what I did, the ones that I'm reading off, I added up, this was time consuming, added up all the acreage for the Rock Creek, the Greater Missoula, and the Lolo Creek geographic areas, added up all the totals, and then added up the individuals for like MA 1.1, did the dividing, and came up with a percentage.
Oh, so would you, and I could just put these percents down, could you just run those percents down the categories again, and that'll allow me to compare the whole thing to this?
How about, rather than take up everybody's time, I'll let you borrow my cheat sheet and you can do it yourself.
Sure.
I think a lot of people.
We can write them all here. We'll write them down so you all can get them.
Okay.
Yes. So I think a lot of people would like this.
So, I'm going to move on, okay, to, we have two left, I think. 5.2, Eyes of Blue. All right, this is residential and forest intermix. Now, do not confuse this with the wildland-urban interface that is on the, or the WUI that's on the tip of everybody's tongue. This was meant to not just look at fuels, but look at that area where people are moving into that forest boundary sort of area and all of the difficulties that come with increased population living right at the forest edge. There's dogs chasing wildlife. There's certainly a concern for fire and fuels on the national forest on our side. There are people just recreating right out their back door with their ATVs running up the hill. So it's meant to look at those issues with people living right along the very edge of the national forest. And, you know, not one or two people like we've always had, but increasing numbers of folks, new subdivisions before our very eyes. So 5.2, these areas are characterized by public lands intermingled with private lands. This is an area where private use and developed residential use adjoins National Forest System lands. National Forest System lands are typically managed to protect natural resources and provide compatible multiple uses. Lands are generally not suitable for resource extraction on a sustainable basis. However, treatment may occur to improve public safety, enhance scenery, or reduce fuels. Opportunities to consolidate land ownership patterns may be pursued. Numerous open roads provide access to private land, roaded recreational and motorized OHV opportunities on designated roads and trails. Motorized transportation is common. Some closed roads may provide non-motorized and mechanized recreation opportunities if access through private land is available. Dispersed recreation activities requiring overnight stays are not encouraged. Access to existing high-use areas is usually provided. Sights and sounds of people predominate. Visual quality settings reflect low to moderately intensely management where human influence is evident. Pardon me. So again, the suitability in these intermix areas, they are generally not suitable for timber production, although timber harvest, including salvage, for multiple use reasons could occur. These areas are generally suitable for commercial use of miscellaneous forest products. They're generally suitable for commercial communication sites or utility corridors. They are generally suitable for managed fire use to the extent that fuel and weather conditions permit the accepted risk to private land values. These areas are generally suitable for motorized use on designated roads and trails. And you can look at that on your map. And you will see on the Missoula Ranger District, it's about a little over 7% of the Missoula Ranger District has been mapped as Management Area 5.2. Any questions on that one? Yes?
The last three, you keep saying motorized use only on existing roads and trails or designated roads and trails, right?
That is pretty much, that is the way it is right now on the Lolo National Forest and has been.
Snowmobiles are running all over. Is this summertime use only? Does it include winter use?
That's a good point for clarification, and we should make note of that because we do have a differentiation between summer use and winter use. And the team has worked on that, designated areas for motorized use in summer areas and winter areas.
We'll be mapping those.
Yes, and we will be mapping those. So that's a good point that needs to be clarified in these MA themes. 6.1, last but not least. These are the high-use recreation complexes or high-use areas. Recreation use is the priority in this management area. They have an attractive element such as a reservoir, skiing terrain, campground, or trail system that encourages public use. They provide or are capable of providing an array of recreational opportunities and experiences in a forested environment. Examples could include a 4-season winter sports area, a hiking trail system with a developed trailhead facility, developed campground, a lake or reservoir with combinations of developed and dispersed recreation opportunities, or a groomed snowmobile trail system with associated trailhead facilities. The key factor in these management areas is that the recreation experiences are the attraction and other natural resources are complementary to the recreation experience. Surrounding terrain may also be included in the management area in order to assure an attractive setting for the development and to provide for future expansion. The visual quality of the setting typically reflects planned high-intensity management on the immediate site with moderate to high-intensity management of surrounding areas. Human influence is usually evident. So our little suitability stuff here, and I see that some of that wording there needs to be changed. High-use recreation complexes or use areas are not suitable for timber production, although timber harvest, including salvage, for multiple use reasons could occur. These areas are generally going to be not suitable for commercial use of miscellaneous forest products. These areas are generally not suitable for commercial communication sites and utility corridors. They are generally not suitable for managed fire. They are generally suitable for motorized or mechanized use if desirable and restricted to designated roads and trails. These areas are generally suitable for multiple facilities designed for use by large numbers of people. Facilities may be strictly designated for user comfort, Facilities may be strictly designed for user comfort and convenience and could be highly refined. So areas, as an example of what those areas would be like, would be Blue Mountain. So if you look on your map, Blue Mountain Recreation Area is probably mapped as 6.1. Patty Canyon, 6.1. Marshall and Snow Bowl are likely should be mapped as 6.1 on your map. So that gives you an idea what we're looking at for 6.1. Yes, sir.
In your description of the theme there, two of those areas you just mentioned are major fault areas, and that's why people go there is to fault. How come that isn't listed as part of your, like, for the skiing terrain or trail system or campground?
Well, there's lots of things. Those are just general examples. I mean, I suppose we could throw in all kinds of examples. We've got mountain biking and backwoods rollerblading, and so I mean, so. Yes.
Percentage in Missoula district?
6.1, 4.2% of the map that you have in front of you is managed as 6.1 currently. And rather than just having this big elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, this will be the focus of the discussion of will Lolo Peak be appropriate? Do we want to manage that area as 6.1 or do we want to manage it as something else on this date of the 21st of July? So.
All right, so Sharon, I'm sorry, Phil, I didn't see your hand up.
Having been through these, I'm just trying to make sure that I've got an idea of what, if I've got a particular use in mind, what kind of a designation would apply. So up Lolo Creek a ways is a private cross-country ski area. Where would that, what if that were on forest land, what would that be classified as?
6.1.
If it was just a cross-country ski area?
Oh, cross-country.
And if it was on national forest, I guess it would depend on what we saw that for the next 20 years, the planning horizon. Do we expect that area would grow intensely or not?
Yeah, how about if it's an RV campground? I'm just trying to understand how we apply these to actual use.
Campgrounds would be 6.1.
Any kind of where you can drive in, campground would be a 6.1?
Not any. I think the idea is two things. Sharon said,
high use.
The designations, what we'd like it to become or what we would allow it to become over the planning horizon, not necessarily what it is now. But I'm thinking with a cross-country ski area, if it was just a trail network with a trailhead that would accommodate a good number of cars, and maybe maybe that's it, a sign, maybe with a trail map. I'm not sure that that would be 6.1. It could be, but if it got into having a warming hut and a concession and just all the frills that would go that would draw people from a long way away, maybe some overnight accommodations, then it's definitely getting into 6.1. So I wouldn't say automatically because you could camp there that it's 6.1. But if it had campground was paved and it had flush toilets, well, then it starts to get into that.
And we anticipate that it's gonna grow in the future. That looks like this is gonna be a hot spot.
One last kind of a use, in Glacier Park backcountry camping, they've kind of got set up designated campsites where you still have to hike 4 days to get in, but the facility is a little bit developed. What would that kind of facility, that kind of an area be designated here?
I'd say that could be any place down to probably 3.3.
2.2.
Yeah, maybe even that.
I don't think we would have one. Wouldn't have a little designated spot like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, John?
Looking at the 6.1 and some of the stuff under the suitability intermix areas, when I look at what's happening up is in Patty Canyon, Blue Mountain right now, as far as the fuels reduction project up there, it says these areas are generally not suitable for commercial use of miscellaneous forest products. I mean, looking at that, I kind of have a problem with that because that's a big part of reducing the fuels hazard up there is taking out, thinning from below in those stands and reducing the fire hazard.
It does talk about timber harvest, generally not suitable for timber production, although timber harvest, including salvage, could occur.
And that says not so you are managed fire.
Yeah, and the other part is the not suitable for managed fire. You wanted the distinction there between managed fire and prescribed fire?
You mean managed fire use?
Fire use.
That's what it had been, all previous pages had managed fire use. I wonder if
Yeah.
that particular word
Yeah,
was
because
left
we
out.
are intending to burn.
Right.
most.
Right, and so all the other ones were fire use. I believe that,
You could catch some of those word omissions there.
Fire use by campfires?
no.
Wildland fire use, you know.
Getting rid of brush
That
piles.
sounds like prescribed fires to me.
I think
No.
Brush piles.
No, none of the above. It would be more like if there is a naturally occurring, a lightning strike starts a fire, and we would just manage it and corral it and keep an eye on it. So these high use areas would not be appropriate for that. So that's what that would be, as opposed to prescribed fire where we actually light it.
Yeah, suppression would be the.
Right.
Suppression, yes, in that, exactly.
That's allowed, right?
Right.
Suppression would
Because
be.
isn't John talking about suppression? Is that what he means?
No, I mean, what it's saying here to me is, I think there's a subtle distinction. These areas are generally not suitable for managed fire. That means if a lightning strikes, we're not gonna sit back and kind of let it do its thing. It's in amongst homes, okay? We might do that up in some wilderness areas, although not many around here. But the other distinction is prescribed fire. We're going in there, we're treating fuels, and now we're intending to introduce fire back into the ecosystem up there. So I just want to be clear that we're not saying we're not going to be doing burning up there.
John, I asked Chuck to make that, because I think it's a word omission. All the previous pages say managed fire use, which is,
Okay.
and it's not suitable for fire use in that
Right.
particular.
Right, and there's another couple of boo-boos on this page, like it talks about the intermix areas, and these aren't the intermix areas, they're 6.1. So.
Okay.
This points up the desirability of glossary of terms that define some, differentiate things.
That'll definitely be in the plan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Just an observation that his comments sort of stirred in me is that I look at 6.1 and I look at how it will be managed, and forget about the recreation side of it, it sounds like a pretty low intensity management. But if I go out to Blue Mountain or I go up to Patty Canyon and see what's going on, it's anything but low intensity, at least in my glossary of terms, that's not low intensity management. So when I start looking at 3.1 and 4.1 and even 2.2, and they all talk about low intensity management, and I relate that to what I'm seeing at Patty Canyon and Blue Mountain, makes me kind of nervous.
Except I like what they're doing.
I have a response for you.
I don't want to do it.
What I would like us to do now is, we're all at our tables, and again, we are looking for some areas of agreement. Mostly what I want is for, there's some discussion to occur at the tables. And, maybe there's some areas that tables will agree on, like I presume we agree on 1.1, that's congressionally designated wilderness, so none of us are going to change that. So if there's maybe some points that you may agree on, that would be good. If you think there's some wild areas that we disagree on, we won't have time tonight to get into a lot of discussion. I think our real goal here this evening was to develop a firm understanding. I would also really like to have a report out in not very distant future, like about 25 minutes or so, and that is so that we can get an idea of how we're doing, and again, see what you think at your table of moving by geographic area next time. So next time, I think I would propose anyway, that we start with Rock Creek. It's, any one of these geographic areas is probably easier than looking at the entire ranger district all at one fell swoop. So see what you guys think of that and let us know. We're here, my job is to try to make this as easy for all of you. I realize there's about 50 of you, so everybody won't be pleased, but that's really my goal, is to try to facilitate this for all of you. Yes?
Besides the designated date for the Bitterroot Resort, can we designate the dates for like discussion of the rattlesnake and Hattie, or so that we, know when to come with the areas that we're interested in?
Well, we can do that, and I thought about that right at the beginning of this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, well, it could be that maybe somebody in the room is only interested in Rock Creek and only wants to talk about Rock Creek, but a lot of people probably want to be heard on all three areas. But we can certainly do that. We could say next week we're going to talk about Rock Creek, the week after, Rattlesnake, or the greater Missoula area. So we'll see how that goes by the end of the evening. And if people think that's a good idea, let's have at it. And I'll just make it up, and so you'll know by the end of the meeting. Yes, Julia, and then I'll get to you, and then we'll move on.
Are your percentages current or proposed?
Those are proposed. That's on the preferred option. I think it's on that map on your table.
On which map?
The current existing condition map.
No, it's not.
That's what we'll bring next time. The comparison chart between the old management areas and the new, we'll bring that next time. The stuff that you're working on, right, Chuck? Okay.
Yes, sir.
We already have it.
Yeah, we had
Okay,
it.
great.
Yeah.
Now, at our tables, are you picking up from last time and moving into 3.3 and beyond? Are we looking at every management area, however the table goes?
Let's start with 3.3.
Okay.
If we could, because I think a lot of tables a lot of folks didn't go management by management area by management area, but if we could start tonight with 3.3 and just work through that way, I think that would get us through, and you'd still have some understanding of each one.
But barely people got to 2.2 last time, and I think there's more discussion to occur on 2.2, so maybe everybody wants to start at 2.2.
Well, it could be, but keep in mind that what your objective is for you all to come to some area of agreement. If you can agree right off the bat that you want to talk about 6.1, and that's where you want to focus your energy, then we're probably just fine with that.
And realizing that I think we will start with geographic areas next time, but if y'all don't want to start with geographic areas next time and you rather look at the whole ranger district and go 2.2, 3.3, we can do it that way too. But I think it's easier to wrap your arms around it. So I'm going to turn it over to the tables, and you guys have at it, and I will kind of move around. There'll be a few of us move around.
Sharon, yes, one question real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I guess it's the question most here is you, Maggie.
Yeah, and the others, but I'm talking about in the Missoula Ranger District.
I think we're already started, so let me come over here and answer the question.
Sounds like it was just his.
Everybody understands what the...
Yeah, I guess.
No idea what this is.
We're defining terminology. What is and what
Where they are.
Potentially increased, this increased to include all of that, but at least include as much of that as possible.
Yeah, it would be
What if it were included in the research natural area as an alternative?
Well, that would be a good alternative too.
Yeah.
Either one of
Would it
those.
meet the definition? I would think so.
Well, you would have to find, and they know that, they've surveyed that area all up in there. You'd have, the research natural area there was established for the hybridization between Alpine Larch and Western Larch. So wherever the extent of that was, I wouldn't propose that we take in all of Lolo Creek.
But you could expand the purpose of the research.
Is it a correct statement, though, that research natural area has changed boundaries several times as far as the area it's encompassed as it was? I mean, it used to sit over into the recreation area and then got moved.
The research natural area, when it was originally proposed back in '76, I want to say, was larger. And when in the early '80s, like '82, when this Lolo Creek or Lolo Peak ski area started, and it was going to be over here on this side, so they lopped off a part of the RNA and said, well, that's okay, we probably don't need the whole thing, we need some chunk for study. So, it probably comes over to this side somewhere. I really don't know where it is. So they lopped it off then. But other than that, since it's been established, since the establishment report was written and signed in '87, it hasn't changed one iota, except for maybe a few trees that fell on the ground a couple of weeks ago.
I like your idea of strengthening that language, Deb.
No, it was signed by the chief of the forest.
That's the level. So the chief changed the boundary just to allow the study of downhill skiing.
The chief did not change the boundary. It was not designated. It was just proposed. And they signed the establishment report, signed the chief, signed the establishment report, and that was the boundary, and has been the boundary since then.
But the reason that was left open was the potential of the recreational and Mill Creek side.
Yes. That's my understanding. It's before my time, but that's my understanding.
That was before the study.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, see, I've got a question then. I'm wondering if, when I look at the, you tap at the map that the Bitterroot Resort is proposed, and you see it's like that's still being open, left as 2.2 as opposed to 1.2 to leave that option on the table, is what it looks like to me.
Well, I suppose you can feel that way if you want, but I will tell you that is not the case.
Not the case.
So,
okay.
Well, but the language sounds like it.
So you've identified a number of potential wild and scenic rivers, or that you would actually recommend for inclusion in the system? Is that what this means?
The first thing on wild and scenic rivers that you do is determine if they are eligible or not.
Right.
And they have to meet a set of criteria. And I'm not real positive, but I think you might know this better than I. The second thing is whether or not they're suitable. Through plan revision, we will only look at their eligibility. However, on the Lolo National Forest, after the last planning cycle, we looked, there are 8 wild and scenic rivers, I believe, on the Lolo, or proposed, and we did a suitability study, which means an EIS, on 7 of those, and recommended those 7 to Congress for inclusion into the wild and scenic river study. So we will do nothing in addition to what has already been done.
Okay, so that's what you've indicated on the map. With
Yes.
the Upper Blackfoot and so forth.
Andy would probably know, but the plan was signed in '86, so sometime after that.
There were a lot of questions last meeting about Rock Creek growing as a eligible or suitable because there is so much development. And how does that get, if this gets put into the system, what happens to all the...
That Rock Creek is the one stream that they did not do last time because it was felt, I learned this today, trying to do my homework in advance of this very question, it was felt that we really should work in conjunction with the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest for the remaining portion of Rock Creek. And since they didn't have the funding or the staffing or the desire to do that, we did not do that one. particular stream. But
Okay.
having lived along a wild and scenic river, the Rogue River in Oregon. And it depends if you're in the wild or the recreational part. But there are intensively managed things. If you happen to have a home within that corridor, even though it's on, I guess no, if you're on private property, I don't think that they don't fuss with you. But if you have like a summer home on national forest land, which I don't believe there are any along there, we have the only place we really have summer homes is the Sealy Lake. So it wouldn't affect any of those people.
Would it affect the Sealy Lake, some of the homeowners?
That one's already been studied. No, I don't think it would affect the Sealy Lake people because those are already well set back and we manage those fairly intensely.
So it sounds as though the work you've done on this is as far as you're going to go, and it's up to Congress now to...
For the 7 that we have submitted, yes.
Okay, so...
Which one did you not?
Yeah.
The Rock Creek.
Right. So it sounds as though there would be agreement that what you've done is as far as you can go, and if we want to advocate in Congress, we can go do that.
Yeah. We figure someday along the line there will be an advocate for wild, some congressional person will be an advocate for wild and scenic rivers and drag them all up.
Yeah,
and
gotcha.
Try to pull together a bill for whichever ones are appropriate.
Okay, but it's...
What we were having at my table, but it's actually, time flies when you're having fun, and it's 20 minutes before 9 o'clock, and I kind of hate to cut this off. 2 hours is hardly enough for these meetings, but I would like us to wrap up and have the report outs that we talked about. Just general, very quick report outs. So in a couple of minutes, I'm going to start asking for those report outs. So if you can start calming things down. Oh, no, about a minute. So we'll
Mountains and trees up against the wilderness area.
Last 10, 15 years of frisbee golf. There's a lot of folks in the recreation industry out there that are starting to look at all these forestry sites that may not get any 600 miles out. Might be involved in the auction block. Somebody wants to plow on the side.
Majority rule, we say we can't read the agreement.
Well, from my
Why they skipped over that tonight? Why did they skip over the wilderness? We didn't talk about it.
I am concerned
We haven't
about
covered it.
and that's just me, and I don't know, because I'm not a forester. Why the big change? I mean, we asked that last.
That is,
I asked it in a letter, and I never got to. Growing infestation.
All right. I'd like to get us back together if we could. And
No.
so if we could briefly have our report outs. And again, I'm really sorry to have to cut this off so quickly. I know you guys all gave up your evening to come in here and have these discussions, but again, the goal was to build a solid foundation so that we could have 2 very productive hours next time. And I know it seems like it's, we didn't really get, we're just starting to get into the discussion at each one of the tables, but next time I'm fairly confident that we will have 2 solid hours of productive discussions. So, yeah, I have a really nasty whistle that I could put into this microphone. And
Okay, which table you want to start with, Sharon?
let's start with yours, Maggie, but I'm thinking since we're actually kind of quick on time here, or short on time, if we could just let me know at each one of your tables if you had any areas of agreement and what you think about next time. And then I need a couple of people up here to help me take notes. So areas of agreement, and I'm going to hand you the microphone so this fine gentleman back here can hear, because otherwise he won't be able to hear what they are. So areas of agreement, and then suggestions for next time or any process comments you may have.
Hi. We came to a pretty good consensus. Hello, everybody. We did come into a pretty good consensus here. We all seem to like the amount of use we could get out of 6.1. Many of us are high users, and and we thought we'd get a lot of high use out of. Didn't mean that to sound the way it came out. 6.1 seemed to fit a lot of our needs, and there's not a lot of purple on the map. So we were looking to see a little bit more prospected high-use areas where we're looking to see more growth for the Missoula area. Top of a lot of the drainages people are moving into, a little bit, more purple.
How about for next time? Comments for next time or on the process in general?
We cranked through the definitions really quickly. We like that. And the comparison table, I think, is going to be a real big one. So we can see, are we getting more purple with the new proposal, or are we getting less purple with the new proposal? And like instances, are we getting, all the rest of the things?
All right, so moving to the next table. Oh, here it comes.
I want to keep it simple. Potato.
We didn't get as far as purple. We talked a little bit about recommended wilderness, and we spent a lot of time getting a better understanding of 2.2. We had a lot of explanation, and I maybe think I can speak for all of us that we understand 2.2 a little better. We agreed that the going geographical area by area next time is fine. That was easy to agree to. And I think in general we could say that we like the concept of backcountry as it's laid out, the theme, and in general the amount of it that's on there. And we had some discussion about using the backcountry designation as a tool in different instances, having a little bit more of it on there in different cases.
Thank you.
Our group basically said that we didn't want to see any more purple. And it should be noted that people on that table are also associated with the ski resort. We are, some of you, we did not come to a consensus. We did not come to a consensus about anything related to the overall plan. I personally thought that it was laid out pretty well, but a lot of people didn't. And all of us had a consensus that we thought the verbiage for the definition of what these designations were way too vague, and we didn't think there would be any way to enforce if somebody wanted to come in with a special use permit and change it arbitrarily. So we were very concerned about the wording of the definition of all these different sections, and that's basically it.
You did, even though you said no more 6.1, they did agree they liked the ones that were there, but they, unlike you, they said no more than that. So that's a slight difference.
And how about the geographic areas for next time? You're good with that?
We basically had 2 areas of agreement and then 3 ideas that were put on the table. The 2 areas of agreement were that next time we do want to talk about within geographic areas. The other area of agreement was a 2.2, the new management residential forest intermix was a very good idea. It's the first, it's a really new management designation. We agreed that that was reflected reality and was very needed. The 3 ideas that were put on the table, that in the 2.2, the backcountry, the language really need to be strengthened to give more protection to the backcountry designation. That the 2.2 around Lolo Peak either had to be put into a 1.2 or expand it, or to expand the RNA. The other idea was to wrap 2.2 around more of the wilderness and proposed wilderness, so you're not abutting wilderness into a high-use area.
Daphne, did you mean 2.2 with more residential interface or 3.2?
5.2. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Phil. Never been very good at numbers.
Oh, well, we didn't agree on very much either. Right at the end, we finally agreed that all the research natural areas should remain the same. Other than that, we kind of got bogged down on little discussions, definitions. One question that arose in the beginning is why is that one area 5.1, the north side of Mormon Creek, why is that the only area in the whole district that's 5.1? My personal feeling is that if all the 4.1 areas are moderately managed for roads and timber, I'd hate to see the highly managed one. But that's just my personal feeling. And then we got into a big discussion also on backcountry management, whether it would allow motorized use in areas where motorized use is illegal now. And we looked at the old maps, MA11, this and that. In short, there was far too much to cover in just 1 hour.
I guess one concern about the backcountry designation is it seems like there's some areas that are suitable for backcountry, but there's also some areas that really should be managed as roadless areas that aren't suitable for timber harvesting. And the fact that there's general in these designations is a problem. And there almost needs to be another management type. Because some areas, need to be managed as primitive or roadless areas, but they don't necessarily need to be wilderness. But right now there's really no teeth, and so you theoretically could manage a 2.2 as a 3.3 if you wanted to, and that was a major concern. And so maybe consider actually creating a new management area that's in between recommended as wilderness and as a backcountry. So.
I do not want to lead you astray that we might do that, because we will more than likely not do that. The team has asked that we do not develop any new management areas, and that we maybe would fuss with a little bit of clarifying wording a little bit more. If we wanted a motorized trail, the areas are generally non-motorized, like for 2.2, but we will list something by exception, and that will be the only exception allowed.
Maybe take out generally and say, with the exception of areas that are specifically.
Through the public process, if we overwhelmingly hear that, we would look to make those changes between.
But let me, a piece to add there. So if your group or this group feels strongly that you see some 2.2 that you want it to be roadless with no exceptions, then let us know. And then we could designate that as the desired condition in that particular geographic area 2.2.
Okay.
Our group.
One other observation from this table, which I think reflects some of us over here, is that, and I'm not a purple person, is that there are many of these other designations that almost serve that purpose. If you look at the Rattlesnake Trailhead, if you look at O'Brien Creek, if you look at some of these other areas that are not purple, there's one hell of a lot of recreation that goes on. Maybe it's not fulfing, maybe it's not as much of high-intensity mountain biking, but it does serve that purpose. So I know we have to stick with colors and official definitions, but there is some crossover that way.
They're right behind us.
When we're done with the table reports, I would like to bring back a question of the definition of 2.2 before we adjourn. If we could get that comment in after the tables are done.
Yeah, Chuck, could you articulate what you heard from a couple tables on 2.2?
Here, can I check in with you for just a second?
Oh, sure. And your other question.
Oh, I just
You want to do your spiel now, or does it?
So. Can you give a definition of 2.2?
Well, just articulate
Was that the
comments you
question?
heard that you're taking.
Sure.
You had a couple on 2.2 suggestions.
Just run through what I got written down here.
Sure, that works.
Okay.
So the high points I heard from Maggie's table, the purple people, in general, you'd like to see more 6.1, and you'd like to see a comparison table of acres between the different management areas, and also between the no action and the proposed action, or the preferred alternative here, preferred option. And at this table, it's okay to work with GAs next time, and you're generally okay with the 2.2 allocations. And at Don's table in the middle here, you don't want any more 6.1, but you're okay with what's there now. There's no general consensus on much of anything else. You thought the verbiage is pretty vague, way too vague, is I think were Susan's words. And you're okay with the GA approach next time. Go ahead. No, I think I got it. What I heard was that all of it.
Okay with 3.2?
Oh, yeah.
Can you add under our 3.2? We're okay with 3.2.
Okay.
So you're okay with 3.2? Are those the RNAs?
Okay, thanks, Don. And in this group over here, you're okay with working and taking a GA approach next time? You like the idea of adding the 5.2? We'll wait for these guys to get finished over here. You're okay with 5.2, this table, and the 2.2 language, you'd like to see it beefed up to afford more protection. In the area of Lolo Peak, you'd like to see that area surrounded with either more 1.2 recommended wilderness or an expansion of the RNA. And you'd like to see 2.2 used generally around wilderness as a buffer, so the wilderness doesn't abut immediately more highly developed areas. And then at John's table, over here, the RNA should remain as is. There's too much to cover in an hour, and that's probably most of us would agree with that. You weren't able to agree on much. You'd like to see an additional MA for non-motorized backcountry, and we just talked about that a little bit.
Gosh, I thought we agreed on everything except for two small things.
That's not what you told me when we were out in the hallway.
But we also, there's one thing on top of that, the Mormon Creek. The Mormon Creek area, we're concerned about the current designation of that because it seems a bit high intensity for where it's at.
5.1. I made a note on my own notebook here to check that out.
Okay.
I wondered about that too. Yeah.
So what, okay, one last comment.
Well, I want just, after the tables are all reported, I wanted to bring up and echo the question about the definition of 2.2, because it appears that there's a significant change in including more motorized use possibilities in 2.2 than was true under the old MA11. And I didn't understand that when we did 2.2s 2 weeks ago. And as a result, I'd like us to have the chance to revisit the territory that we're assigning 2.2s, because maybe I'm going to rather have us go more in the direction of a 1.2 if it means more motorized potential. So I'm not satisfied that where we left it 2 weeks ago was done under a clear definition.
This is exactly the place. This particular discussion, and I'm not certain if there's a particular area that folks are concerned about with 2.2, but this is exactly the discussion of suitability and allocation that we're talking about. So that's the idea of this collaboration. If that particular issue bubbles up as the key issue that this group talks about, then that's what we'll talk about. You know, if we end up with having one agreement out of this for that particular thing, that's okay. We're still gonna go through and talk about the other geographic areas, but, so it's okay to have that. You may not get the satisfaction of an answer tonight, Phil, or maybe even next time, but it's, what you're suggesting is exactly the spirit of why we're doing this, okay?
And the related question then, which is one I asked, I think 2 meetings ago, in looking down the definitions, there's the possibility of exception. And I'd ask the question, what are the criteria by which an exception gets looked at and considered? If, as Andy had said earlier, well, something would be done by exception, but it's absolutely wide open and nobody knows how that happens, then I think we would be justified in saying we want stricter rules.
Yes, that's
Otherwise,
exactly.
we need some clarification on what constitutes the grounds for an exception. Lacking either one of those, we don't have a useful plan.
Okay.
The present
Everything is
exception
way
at this
too
point
vague.
has been guided by what's in our current gravel plan.
Yeah.
So Chuck, any
as we learn
response?
more, we need at least that much clarity.
Two parts to that. The first, the way I'm viewing it is that the 2.2, we're looking at an area that generally lends itself to that primitive experience, that backcountry kind of experience. But it happens to have an existing motorized route there. And in some cases, it's really important to get from here over to there, and it's the only way to get there, and it's really important to maintain that as a motorized route. So we're looking at the choice, do we let that disqualify it then for that 2.2 backcountry designation, or do we say, okay, there are going to be some places where we've got 2.2 where you might find a road out there. But I don't read that to mean that we're going to be building new roads or opening new roads or encouraging new roads or motorized uses in 2.2. It's a way to accommodate what's there. Otherwise, the other choice is to say we've disqualified it for 2.2. It's too late for it to keep that primitive status. We're just going to let it go into a motorized class. So that's part of the answer. As far as the criteria, right now the answer is no, and no hard criteria, because when we start defining criteria, everybody wants regulation to get what they want, but as soon as you start drawing those hard lines, you then say if it's not inside those lines, you've excluded a lot of things, and you may have excluded some things you didn't want to. So we're trying to stay away from trying to anticipate. Always and everywhere, if it doesn't meet these criteria, it doesn't make it. If it does meet these, it has to make it. We're trying to stay away from that. We're trying to, the idea here, I can't emphasize this enough, one of the most important things you'll do here is talk about the desired condition in that particular area of 2.2. And if a lot of people overwhelmingly say, our desire is that always be non-motorized exclusively, and there is not an existing critical route in it, then we can do that. That's the place to get it, in the desired condition, and not in changing the definition of the 2.2.
Well, I don't have a problem with roads in 2.2 that are currently legal and recognized, but what about the illegal road use in there? Is this a way to basically legalize illegal use?
Our desired condition is going to be that those illegal routes, user-built routes, will not be there. So this gives us we can't make that decision in forest planning, but we can say this is our desired condition, and now, as soon as we have the opportunity and the ability, we want to do the site-specific NEPA analysis that says those are gone.
Maybe could you include that somehow in 2.2? I mean, some language that specifies that.
Will be the desired condition.
Yeah, it'll be in the desired condition. Yeah.
What else we got?
I still don't understand why, though, you can't make a 2.3. If there's all this controversy over the different things that are and aren't allowed in 2.2, why can't we have another management area? And I know you've said your team doesn't want to do that, but that's not good enough for me. Why don't they want to do that?
We don't want to do it because the last time we got some, I don't know how many there were on the Lolo, but we got on the Flathead, the number was getting up into the 20s and more. And it got to be ridiculous. There were so many of these, well, this one is a little different than that, it's a little bit different than that. And in the interest of trying to make this trying to look at larger areas instead of these little minuscule places we're choosing not to go there. It's not to say that we won't ever, under any circumstances, but we're really not very.
Public issue, and it's a major public issue. Let's deal with it. Let's quit trying to sweep it under the rug and just say, trust us. Let's deal with it.
I think we would deal with it, like Chuck was suggesting, in the desired condition statement for the geographic area.
When does the
But this group wants to know where it's allocating these places to when we're looking at these maps.
And we're making note of what you want.
We're
Yeah.
tracking
Chuck?
it now. It's hard to say, trust us with this. You all are taking the spec. You're gonna meet with the team every one of these meetings, so it's not gonna be unthought of, all right? So I'm not sure if you guys are shutting the door. It's not like we have that ability at this point.
Several people are ahead of you, Susan.
Susan, hang on, check in one more, and then we're gonna call it a night after your comment, Chuck, and then we'll close it out.
And then I want to get to this too.
Is the reasons for lumping rather than splitting, does that have to do with the, allowing you to avoid NEPA?
Good question.
Well, I mean, you know, if you're as general as you are, then you don't have to apply NEPAs. And then when you get into the project area, the fear I have is that you can do projects on a limited enough scale that you can use categorical exclusions, and therefore NEPA will never apply. And
I sure hope
wonder
not.
if that's part of the plan, or not necessarily your plan, but some higher powers plans to,
It's sure not part of my plan. I think you know me well enough to know that. I don't know, it's hard for me to see that that issue would be greater or lesser, whether we looked at larger areas or smaller areas.
areas should be a very long.
So Sharon, will you run over the next meeting dates and the geographic areas that we'll look to?
So, okay, we talked about, I really appreciate y'all hanging in there. It's getting to be almost 10 after 9, but we talked about going by geographic areas next time and trying to find areas of agreement by geographic areas. So next time, I would like us to focus on the Rock Creek geographic area. The team is working on some desired condition statements for that. If they are anywhere more done than what they are now, I will bring those 2 weeks from now, the desired condition statements for geographic areas on Rock Creek. Now, Rock Creek is fairly small, and there aren't that many management areas in there. So if we feel like a table is done with discussing Rock Creek, I would envision that we could move on to the greater Missoula area next time. So that should be plenty. You know, but maybe, I don't really have a feel how this will go. Maybe there will be a great deal of discussion on the Rock Creek area. So we'll just have to play that by ear. But Rock Creek will be the main focus, with moving on to greater Missoula. Now, for those of you that were interested in writing these things down and really could give a rip about Rock Creek, but really cared about the greater Missoula area, here are some dates for you so that you will know. So again, Rock Creek and possibly greater Missoula on July 7th. July 21st, we already have this all scheduled out. The focus will be on Lolo Peak, not necessarily the Lolo Creek geographic area, but on Lolo Peak, and I believe we're meeting with the Stevensville group on that same evening, so there will be about 932 people here. No, not really, just joking. On the 2 weeks later after that, we will finish up the greater Missoula area if we got a start on it. So we will work on the greater Missoula area. I'd like to get that wrapped up that week. And then the following week, we will work on the Lolo Creek geographic area. And if you look on your map, you'll see that one is actually fairly complex. There's a lot of different things going on in that geographic area.
Meeting here all those nights, as far as you know?
Yeah, we're gonna be here. Yeah.
It's just a lot easier.
We're gonna start charging you all to come, though.
Yes.
Supposing that any one of these, and especially the July 21.
We have a couple of questions left here, so just hang tight a sec.
Supposing that any of these, particularly the July 21 meeting, the 2 hours turns out just to not be enough time, do we have some way of anticipating a way of scheduling an additional meeting to finish up working on that? Or is it just going to bump the schedule down?
Our last meeting is scheduled for September 1st, Phil, so we've got one more after the August 18th already. But to answer that maybe more specifically, I was going to ask the group if perhaps we need to go to more than a 2-hour meeting tonight. Do we start at 6:30 and end at 9:30, or start at 7 and end at 10 instead of 9? Any consensus?
Or we could do an intervening week in here, you know, like next Thursday we meet. No, it wouldn't be next Thursday, but we could do something. You'd rather not do that.
Let me just say July 21st might go to 10 o'clock.
6:30 to 9:30. To 9:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we generally do 6:30 to 9:30? No.
People have got 7 in their mind already.
Okay, so how about, what's the consensus for every meeting after tonight, 6:30 to 9:30? No? Good. 6:30 to whenever? No,
7 to 7.
7 to 9:30.
Every meeting will start at 7,
Yeah.
and we could go up until 10.
Right.
9:30 or 10?
Yeah, I'm looking for hands.
Oh, let's do that again.
Everybody's gonna start at 7 o'clock.
Are we okay with that?
Every meeting. We'll start at 7 and we'll go longer if we have to.
How about that?
Okay.
Yes. All right.
And July 21st, kind of probably plan on going.
Sorry, Bert?
And July 21st, you might just plan on going longer in the event that you
Yeah.
have.
Tell your friends and neighbors we're gonna go long. There was one more question back here, and then Maggie's got the floor. Listen up, please.
I need a better tool for me. This is a new experience for me, and I'm really ignorant. So when you want me to talk about generally suitable for providing non-motorized and mechanized recreation opportunities on closed roads, I don't know what that looks like. What's a mechanized recreational opportunity, and do you have to have your mother's permission to go there?
Yeah.
We will be, Chuck has made note of that. I talked to him. He's made note of that, and they are working on one. They don't have one anywhere even close to half complete, but they're working on it. It's just one of those things, the specialists all know what those things mean. They just need to sit down and write it down in English.
Some of that you need to pick up just by coming to the meetings. We're not gonna cover everything in
But
Gloucester.
there are too many to pick up.
Some of you just, after you've been to a few meetings, you start to catch on to it. You turn into a government employee.
So if you have half of it available, I'll start there.
Yeah, and you can feel free to stop by our office sometime as well. But let me give this over to Maggie, because I think, and several of us will be here afterwards, and then if you've got a question, we can do it, because I'm holding you now longer than you probably wanted to be.
Okay, I just wanted to, first of all, say thanks to everybody. Now we're getting into nice summer weather, and it's a lot to ask for folks to come in, and I really appreciate it. Your input is invaluable to us, and although our answers to you tonight may seem like we have a pat answer to, we need to take all of this stuff back, and Chuck talked to the team immediately after every one of these meetings, as do the other planning team members. So please don't assume that this doesn't get discussed in great detail. And like we've told you before, all the notes from all the meetings get put onto our website. We've got the website listed at the bottom of the page here, so you can go to it and see what other districts are talking about. The thing I wanted to mention really quick, though, I don't mean to point out any particulars, but I do expect that we will treat each other with respect when we come here. I know there are differing opinions, which is why this is a good thing for us to do, and that's why we ask folks to come who have differing opinions and sit at different tables, because you do. But we can't accept, and I won't accept, the kind of dialogue we had this evening when we have somebody making a comment and another person criticizes it. We lose all the rich value of our conversation when we do that. So I ask you to please allow us to have an open dialogue and not place judgment on folks for the discussion that we have and the positions that we hold. And in particular, when we come together on the 21st of July, we can expect, especially those of you who have been with each other for a couple of weeks, we're looking to you to help us carry that night. That's not going to be an easy night for the Missoula community. And so people who've been here for a while and we know each other, you can carry the discussion in a holistic and kind of a helpful way. We're going to have a lot of media here that night. It's going to be a pretty heated discussion, I expect. And if we can keep everybody talking about suitability, vision, big picture, allocation type of stuff, we'll have it made. But if we talk about individuals and we talk about things that are personal opinions, we can break it down real quick. So I really appreciate folks keeping it on the high ground. And so thanks again for coming, and we'll see you in 2 weeks right here.